Hello and welcome to another fully live Q&A episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I'm joined by the T800 Terminator in preparation for Halloween. If this is a different model of Terminator, please let me know. I'm not a Terminator expert, but I have been making some preparations for Halloween. It's one of my favorite holidays coming up, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how you might be able to use AI to do some creative Halloween projects and a little bit about what I have done so far. So hello, everyone. Good to see you. We're actually starting at the normal time today. Often when we have a guest or something, I'm kind of a one-man band. I'm kind of like doing everything at the same time. So if we have a guest, I usually like to schedule an hour later so I have more time to get ready. But today it's just me and my friend here. So I have decided to make a little bit of an interactive Halloween display. Just because I think that anybody who's going for candy, like maybe deserves a little bit of a surprise. So being one of my favorite holidays, I have put a little bit of what I've learned recently about designing code with AI into a demonstration that makes it so that anybody who takes maybe more candy than they're supposed to might get a little bit of a surprise. So allow me to demonstrate. Let's see if I can show off how this works. So you can see the candy bowl has a little bit of foil on the inside, and this trick works on capacitance. So at the very core of this is a USB nugget. So this is a microcontroller with a screen and a breakout. And in this case, I also paired it with a breadboard breakout. So it makes it super easy to plug things in. And a lot of the pins on this are actually capacitive, meaning I can measure change and I can sense when something is different. For example, if a hand is reaching into a candy bowl. So what's cool about capacitance is there's a couple of the pins on the on the core microcontroller here called the ESP32 S2 that are capacitive sensing pins. So they can sense when something is touched. So if I combine that with a big sheet of tinfoil and basically like tape like a wire to the tinfoil so there's really good contact, I can turn that into an antenna so that the effect becomes really, really sensitive. So when I reach for this, hopefully we're going to hear a sound. Let's see how close I can get before it recognizes. Okay, so it recognized I was going for the candy. Let's try again.
Excessive candy detected. Prepare for termination. I have detailed files on candy.
Okay, all right. So I'll hold it up so you can hear.
Mission objective: retrieve stolen candy. Excessive candy detected. Prepare for termination. Excessive candy detected.
All right. It's just gonna keep yelling at me. Okay, so how does this actually work? Well, the code that I made is, as I said, AI generated. So what I did was I put in the particular pins I was using. I went to, I'll show off my screen. I used CircuitPython here to actually write the code. They have a lot of really useful examples on how to integrate a speaker and how to use touch input. So I've tried out a couple peripherals that I wanted to see if they would be cool to teach little classes about. And speakers or amplifiers are really nifty because it means you can play all sorts of wave files from just a little bit of code. So in this case, I added a little speaker with an amplifier and then just the USB nugget here to play something every time it senses a little bit of capacitive change. Now, I also decided I wanted some Arnold Schwarzenegger style voice for this. So there are a bunch of AI services that allow you to generate speech from an example. So in this case, I looked for a Terminator, T800, and then I can generate it, and it's not always super good. Like there are definitely some voices on this website that are pretty terrible and like barely sound anything at all. But there's some others that do sound pretty good. So you can get sound effects like this and add them to these very, very basic CircuitPython projects. And I want to show off a little bit of what that code looks like. So while that's loading, the code here that's used to control this project is 53 lines long. That's an extra line. So that's pretty simple. It's really not doing that much. All it's really doing is listening for that capacitive change. And then when it senses it, starting to play one of these wave files. And if it continues to sense touch, it just keeps on going. So that's pretty simple. I described it to, I think I was using ChatGPT 4 for this. But I've also used Bing's just like chat interface in order to produce reasonably good CircuitPython code and iterate anytime there's an error. So I was a little bit disappointed to see that I couldn't like connect to the internet and like stream an MP3. Like that was really my goal. But unfortunately, the ESP32S2 only has a single core, and that means that it's not able to do some of the fancy MP3 things I wish it could do. However, I think that this is good enough for Halloween at least. So I 3D printed this. Oh wait, has it finished? Let's see. Still pending. All right. Well, anyway, if you want to get some interesting effects, you can use AI to generate CircuitPython code for any number of different boards and kind of rig them up like this. I'm going to be connecting a pair of eyes as well to this project so that when it's touched, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but currently it turns red. I think maybe, can I control the lights? Wrong light. Wrong light. Okay, I can't control the main light, which is the sad part. But anyway, it currently glows from the inside, but soon there will be eyes kind of poking out through these two holes. So I got this model on Thingiverse, and it took me about 24 hours to print this like human-sized skull. So if you're looking for some interesting Halloween projects, 3D printing is often available at local makerspaces or local hackerspaces. Often, either you can pay for a little bit of their filament, or you can just bring some of your own. But there's still plenty of time for these sorts of Halloween projects. And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with just some of the innate abilities that some of these microcontrollers have. Capacitive touch sense is pretty cool. And the fact that you can use it to maybe line your candy bowl with aluminum foil and detect when someone's grabbing candy, or you can also just have a metal candy bowl that's capacitive anyway. The ability to turn one of these pins connected into the bowl into kind of an antenna as like a presence sensor leads to a lot of potentially fun pranks. So I'm thinking of also having a servo here that maybe like, I don't know, like puts a hand down on the candy or like lifts something off of the Terminator skull. But the way I'm going to be presenting this is there's going to be a pumpkin, okay, that's going to have this on top of the stem. So it's going to be the pumpkin's head. And then it's going to have 4 stubby legs. So it's like the size of like a dog, and it's going to stand next to the candy bowl. So yeah, we'll see how much people like it. The Pumpkinator was a big success last year. I think on this side you can actually see the head of the old Pumpkinator, or at least one of the heads of the old Pumpkinators. We made a whole pack of them. But adding a little bit of life to these projects using AI has been a goal for me this year. And I think if you haven't tried out coding with AI, there's Copilot, there is ChatGPT, and there's also Bing. 3 great resources for working with code. Although I can't say that I recommend Claude by Anthropic. There's going to be a video coming out later next week about, or actually maybe this week, about why you can't trust it. I covered it in the last stream, but I went through the trouble of scientifically proving that Claude was hallucinating data that I gave it when we were doing war driving data. So yeah, if you have any questions about what you can and cannot use AI for, turns out uploading a CSV war driving file and asking questions about the data, something you cannot or at least should not do. All right, so hello everybody also in the live, of course. If you have any questions, feel free to shout them out here. I have it on the side this time. Hi, I have questions. Please ask them. That is what this is for. But if you haven't already seen it, I also want to give a shout out to our Discord server, which is in the wrong window. Let me grab it. Because we have a bunch of people in our Discord server who have been sharing lots of great stuff. So hello, everyone. So I always shout this out just because we've had a bunch of people who have brought me news that I would not have seen otherwise. And if you want to see a little bit more about this, you can go to nugget.lol. And I always check out our live chat section to see what is going on. And in this case, there's a very interesting like Bluetooth attack going on against gas stations that allow people to just like fill up for free by like putting it into some sort of like maintenance or test mode. But yes, I will cover this later on. So yeah, feel free to join our Discord server if you guys want to drop questions here. We always are listening on the live Q&A section. Of course, we've gotten some questions on just the YouTube channel as well. All right, so a DNS zone transfer, that's a great question. So a DNS zone transfer is something that I usually come across when I'm doing open source intelligence. It's something that usually allows me to learn more information about the recipient or the person who currently owns a domain. Attempting a DNS zone transfer, I don't totally know the underlying details. I just know that it's usually part of like an OSINT investigation when I'm doing active reconnaissance and I'm trying to figure out more information about a domain by trying to see if it's been like slightly misconfigured. I might need to get back to you on that one because it's been such a long time that I don't want to say inaccurately what it is. But I believe it's like, well, for me anyway, it's been a part of like an investigation where I'm trying to like suss out details about like a particular like web domain where I don't know who owns it, or like I maybe don't know if it's malicious or not. Like that's usually where I've seen that term, but I can't tell you exactly what it's for. I'm sure somebody in our chat probably knows. All right, I'm gonna also bring up. Let's see. A couple of other things that I did this week. So one thing that I just wasn't aware of, and perhaps someone in the chat could tell me, I don't know if anybody has taken a 3D print off of a 3D print bed and had it spark at them. But this morning, I was taking this guy off the printer, and as I was taking it off, it actually like fluoresced like that, like lit up each time I snapped something off the bed. So I've never seen that before, but pretty cool. I guess it's probably just like discharging static electricity, but still something that I had not seen or noticed before and thought was really weird to see like my 3D print like pulsing at me as I was removing it. Yeah. Okay, so we are all in one. We are all in the same boat because I have not been asked about a DNS zone transfer for a while. Mostly because every time I run that option while doing an OSINT investigation, like it comes up negative, like it doesn't work. So I think my impression anyway from using tools that have mentioned it has been that it's something that most websites have configured properly, but occasionally is misconfigured. Okay, another thing is, oh yeah, I kind of mentioned this, but if you want to use one of these little speakers, like I have a lot of extra speakers. I used to find them around everywhere. They're just really useful. And because I have so many, it's a little frustrating to me that you can't just like plug this directly into a microcontroller and start like, doing projects like this. It's just not loud enough. It needs to be amplified in order to be properly heard. So there are these really cheap, they're like 80-cent amplifier chips on AliExpress. I bought a couple just to see if they actually work, and that was kind of like the idea behind trying this project out, was figuring out that yes, they do work and they're really easy. Like I said, I was trying to find some interesting projects to teach people about programming with microcontrollers, and I tried to do these like laser and laser detectors, and there's, oh my god, you guys, they're such a bad idea. Let me explain why it's not a great idea to do a beginner project with lasers. So for one, of course, eye damage, like what you would expect. Like, a laser is possible to like hit somebody in the eye. It's not like people don't really take it seriously. Sometimes like it's something where you really need to be careful. But these laser detectors, I think, are arguably more dangerous than the laser. Because if you plug them in backwards, or at least these cheap ones that I got access to, they burst into flames. They shoot smoke out of them and then they start a fire. So yeah, I thought I was going to be doing a project on like laser data communication. And I quickly realized I would rather do a project on speakers, because if you miswire them, like maybe you break the speaker. I don't think it's going to catch on fire like immediately the way that these do. So yeah, just let it be known that if you're going to work with lasers, sometimes the danger isn't the laser itself. It's plugging the laser detector in backwards to the cheap board that it comes on, because this is now trash and also smelled very bad. All right, so here is a question. Please, I want to know, how secure is Microsoft BitLocker? Can it be cracked if I don't remember the unlock key and I didn't save the recovery key? So in general, these sorry, my cats were about to fight. Okay. So in general, these sorts of systems are designed to be very secure, but they are, of course, somewhat dependent on the strength of your password. So if you have a password that is really, really easy, or if you suspect you set a really, really easy password, then they may not be secure to that. Like typically they take a while to unlock, like they have encryption that is based on a principle that is very slow or like resource expensive in order to try a bunch of guesses by design. When you are looking at the way that you're storing passwords or information like that, like you have a lot of different options, and some of them allow you to make it very expensive or resource intensive to do these sorts of brute forcing attacks. Now, if this is well designed, and of course I haven't looked at the source code here, like I haven't used this product, but being that it is like a password manager style kind of product, those people building that are going to want to pick the most expensive and most like difficult methods possible to store everything in, so that anybody who's trying to brute force it, has a really difficult time. So my inclination would be they would tend to be as secure as your password is. However, they would also be designed to also like make it expensive for an attacker to try to recover a password just based on the list of what they suspect it could be. So yes, wonderful. Not one but two people in the chat know what a zone transfer is. Let's take a look. Okay, cool. So DNS zone transfers would usually take place when you have multiple DNS servers and want them all to have the same DNS information. So it sounds like then you're like adding like a new DNS server to this list and you're trying to syndicate information across it. Second person chimes in, think you can. Zone transfers when you have a backup redundant DNS server that requests updated records from the primary server. That feature has to be enabled on the primary server for the replication to work. The attack, I'm learning something here. The attack allows the attacker to request a transfer of all the records from the primary DNS server to get all of the subdomains. Okay, and then Chris continues, rather than manual checking, you would have a primary DNS that you would update, and the other secondary servers would pull that primary ones for updates. Okay, so from the audience, we can then deduce this. I was sort of right. So from an OSINT perspective, if I'm attempting a DNS zone transfer, or if I'm attempting to see if this is allowed for me to request all the subdomains, I would be able to learn about all the subdomains that are served on this particular DNS server. And that would be something that would be enabled on the DNS server that I'm attempting to get information from. And if I succeed, then I would get access to all these subdomains, and I wouldn't have to go scraping around for the robots.txt file or doing any other sorts of investigations. So cool. Thank you very much, everyone, for explaining that. The fact that this is a mechanism then for a DNS server to update other, like DNS servers that are requesting information from it, that makes sense, because from an OSINT perspective, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to request information about what subdomains are available from this DNS server. So cool. Thank you, everyone. That is actually super useful. And yeah, it is something that needs to be enabled on the server that you're querying. And from an investigator's perspective, this is never enabled. I've never had it like happily give me information here. Cool. Yeah, that's one of those things that I hear regularly because I'm using tools that have it enabled as like a mode of like querying for like OSINT purposes or investigation purposes, but it just like never works. So like I never really delved much more into it. All right. So I just wanted to mention this because it was kind of funny. Earlier, I think it was last week, I was looking around on TikTok and I saw a video that I could not believe was real. This was a video of a maintenance worker opening up one of the big cabinets that manages data that goes to the sphere. So, okay, I want to show off the replacement video. This was on a TikTok account that is like a that is a Las Vegas specific account. I hope it's me. Yeah, it's muted. And this guy just walked up to the sphere and was like, hey, like what's going on here? Like, what are these cabinets? Like, I'm interested in what this is. Like, can you explain it to me? And the guy was like, yeah, sure. this is one of the cameras. There's 4 of them that are positioned around the sphere that are sending a data link back to the operator. So when the sphere does like a sync or when it's projecting an image, it'll do like test patterns, and this camera is what will send via a fiber optic network information back to the operators, who will then automatically adjust for that. So there's some software probably running that will like check all this and like make sure everything's synced properly. So it really does rely on the cameras here in order to make sure that everything works. And the guy was just like, yeah, you can film, like go on, get in there. And he like, zoomed in on the server racks. You could see the fiber optic lines coming out, and you could get the exact model of like the switches that were in there. And it was like immediately obvious to me that this was going to get someone in trouble. Like I like could not believe that I was actually like looking at the inside of like one of the control cabinets. So he also explained, like, as far as he knows, this is all offline. There's no way into the network. Like you have to be in physically, like in the control center, like putting stuff up there via the system. But as a hacker, it's super interesting to me to know like what the operators have to rely on, and how potentially you might be able to trick the calibration sequence or something into doing something it's not supposed to do if you're able to manipulate that data. So if I know what the software does, then maybe if I take over 1 or 2 of these cameras, I can project something on like one side of the sphere that's not supposed to be there, or something like that. I'm sure hackers would be very interested to get into these details. So I was pre-recorded or live here. What do you think, buddy? It is live. Also good to see you, 8-bit Oni. So of course, this is a live Q&A. So I'm going over some stuff that I saw this week. But if you have a question for me about hacking or about my friend the Terminator over here, feel free to ask me. Um, but yeah, so anyway, what did I learn from this? One, if you are a contractor and you start showing people all the internal like access to like a landmark project like the sphere, you are probably going to get reassigned. So the person who posted this said that they received communication that the person who showed them all this stuff got reassigned. They didn't get fired, so they don't work at the sphere anymore. They work somewhere else as an IT person. But yeah, so if you want to keep your job, do not allow people to film the hardware or equipment on the inside of like control equipment or any part of like sensitive areas like this. For TikTok or for any other reason. So yeah, that was my little piece of like, I couldn't believe my hacker luck at like learning how the cameras on the outside of the sphere are like feeding back. And like, I kind of suspected something like this, but seeing the actual brand of the switch that they were using was definitely something I wasn't expecting to see on TikTok. So that was pretty crazy. All right. So yeah, of course, a lot of people have tried to hack the sphere. As far as I know, nobody has actually succeeded yet, but I imagine it will happen sometime. My prediction is it's either like one of those USB attacks, or somebody figures out how to take control of an external component. Like I just said, like they've just got like regular switches inside these cabinets, and the cameras perhaps could be manipulated. So if you have control over what the sphere operators see, then perhaps you could manipulate in some way what ends up going on the screen. I'm not sure. It seems really interesting. At the very least, I think you could probably create like patterns of like light and dark, or like be able to like put other images on there that would show up enough that I would count it as hacking the sphere. So yeah, hope that helps anyone who's been plotting to do some sort of sphere competition. I know that was a major goal at the last DEF CON that was left unfulfilled. Yeah, I guess we'll see how that goes. All right, question. Black Arch, opinion. Well, I don't want to get anyone too upset or angry. A lot of people have very strong feelings that Black Arch is the best. I would say that Black Arch is great. I like it a lot. The only thing I don't like about it is how difficult it is to install sometimes. There really are a bunch of hurdles sometimes to like being able to get it working for a beginner. who might kind of fall off the path, like if they have never done an Arch install before. I would rank it on a scale of 1 to 10 of being Linux difficult as like a 4 or a 5 on a good day, and a 7 or an 8 if something goes wrong. So there's generally decent support. I wouldn't say that everybody's necessarily like friendly and happy to help you install it. It's kind of like everybody expects you to figure that out, and then after that they'll talk to you. So I would say that the community, obviously, well, I'm not going to say obviously, but the community of support you're going to get isn't going to be as beginner friendly as like, like, I don't know, Ubuntu or even Kali Linux. However, it is going to be really, really nice to get used to if you like running on a lightweight system that's going to be like Arch based. You're going to be learning like a new package manager, hooray. But it has basically all the tools that you would need. And I would say it's not a bad environment to get set up in. I just find that when I learn something, having to learn it 4 different ways is frustrating when I'm going between different like flavors of Linux. So I'll typically kind of stay in one, and Debian-based Linux is fine. It does most of the things I want, and as a result, I get used to the package managers and other things with Debian Linux, and most of the guides and most of the like bleeding edge tools are written with installation instructions for those particular flavors of Linux. So sometimes by trying to be the cool guy and like having an awesome like not very popular like flavor of Linux running, I end up making it really difficult for myself to install bleeding edge stuff that is available for the most popular distributions, but not necessarily maybe for Arch. Maybe it's just for Debian based Linux. So Linux fragmentation has its downsides, and Black Arch is kind of a prime example of one of those, like where, again, you're learning a different package manager. You're hoping that people are able to make a version of it, of their software for, Arch Linux, or, at least to make it convenient to install. You might find yourself doing manual installations of like literally everything because there's no pre-made installer for your flavor of Linux, or it's not listed in the default package repository. So that's the only kind of downside I would say, is I found myself constantly installing things manually, and that did get tiresome. And that's often why I'll choose to use like, either Ubuntu or Kali for most demonstrations, or even for some research, because let's say that I need to install 2 tools and I need to run them both in order to run a particular piece of research, and one of them isn't available for easy installation in Arch Linux. It just takes extra time, sometimes, and that's not a great excuse for not using a super one flavor of Linux, but it is an excuse for why I personally tend to stick with Debian-based Linux when I'm doing research and I just want everything to work. Oh, yes. So here we go. It's not meant for beginners. Just use Parrot or Kali. Yeah, like honestly, like when you're getting into security research and you're trying to like get these tools to work so you can focus on learning a lesson, unless Linux system is the lesson that you're learning, remove complications and use something that has great support and other people who are in a similar circumstance. The peer support and the straight up just like general software support is going to be something that ends up being really helpful for you. So that's why, Parrot Security OS is a Debian base. So it's Debian, just like Kali Linux. Like if you're looking for another flavor of Linux and you want something that's like beautiful and has all the tools and like, it's just kind of a, I don't know, like I would call it like a step up in experience from Kali Linux sometimes. I have absolutely nothing against Parrot Security OS. It is, like I said, Debian based, the same package managers work. If you have a lesson that you want to teach in Kali Linux, you can bring it on over to Parrot Security OS and it'll just look better, So yeah, both of them are perfectly valid and wonderful operating systems for hackers that are beginner friendly, have great support. And I would say Parrot also has great kind of extensibility and like, I feel like when I'm using Kali Linux, I'm driving around like an armored personnel carrier. So if I'm just going to the grocery store and I'm doing regular stuff, like it feels weird to be like running something like that sometimes. However, I would say that Parrot is a nice enough Debian system that it works pretty nicely as a daily driver, honestly. Yeah, the more I talk about it, the more I want to get Parrot security again. But I will say that when I have a bare bones task that I need to do, having Kali Linux, just like a quickly spun up version of it, is a tried and true and very dependable way of just getting set up and knowing that there have been no customizations, no nothing fancy has been done to the operating system. It's just working. So I'll say that, yeah, I recommend Parrot Security OS. I think that if you're coming from Kali Linux or Ubuntu, the experience is just like it's just prettier and nicer and comes with everything pre-installed. It's wonderful. But yeah, so I like Parrot because the main person in the system theme is nice. It's just a beautiful operating system, honestly. Like I find that the people who made it like kind of care about aesthetics maybe a little bit more than Kali Linux. Like it just looks like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying mean things to the people of Kali Linux for no reason, because there are some nice Kali like setups or whatever. But the fact that it's set up with the expectation that you're not just spinning it up for a demo, like you are using it to do real stuff. Like I would take a laptop with Parrot Security OS to school to learn cybersecurity and feel really good about it. And like I feel like I wouldn't need to switch back and forth between like another laptop to do a lot of the stuff I wanted to do. So that's my 2 cents. That's why I enjoy Parrot Security OS. I don't use it as much as I should, but I think Kali Linux honestly gets the job done. It's just not something that I like to use as a daily driver. Actually giving an old laptop extra life by installing Kali on it right now. First try to use it as a desktop OS. Yeah, I would say if you have an old laptop or something that's just like sucks for Windows or sucks for like other things, then Kali Linux is wonderful. Like Parrot Security OS, I would say is a little beefier in terms of like the resources it might require to like have that elegant experience, but Kali Linux will run on like anything. It's great. That's one of the best things about it, is people have just been obnoxious even about porting it to different platforms. So yeah, like Kali Linux, just revisiting this, like Kali Linux, like there's nothing as straightforward for hackers to run. It will run on the dustiest, oldest laptop that you have. And it might not run fast, but it gets the job done. Is it subtle? No. Does it look like you're doing hacker stuff? Yes. If you install Kali Linux on your computer, people are going to look over your shoulder and they're going to know what you're doing. So you got to change the default theme. Like everybody knows what this is. This is not a secret anymore. So if you want to get flagged at your local like co-working space, like run this operating system and show off this background. Like people are going to know that you're like messing around doing something, and if you don't have a reason to be doing it, they might ask you. It has actually happened to me. So yeah, at this point, like the Kali background kind of like burns you as a hacker, and if you're cool with that, then it's fine. There's plenty of also non-default backgrounds that you can change this to that, kind of like fix that problem. So it's not like, avoid this operating system because it's going to burn you. I'm just saying if you do a default install and don't change this, it is no longer a secret that this is an operating system for doing bad computer stuff. It is now going to put you on the forefront of the list of suspects if something goes wrong or gets hacked in a particular space. All right, here's a question, and I'm gonna have to disappoint you. Being knowledgeable in hardware, have you ever tried to disable Intel ME in a laptop BIOS with an SPI programmer? No, I haven't. Although that is technically within the realm of things that I should know how to do, or at least that I, like have access to. So I still am at the level of of like hardware hacking where like I'm working on computers that cost no more than $5 and I'll destroy them indiscriminately. But as a result, no, I haven't. So the microcontroller I'm working with right now is the, let's see, Wemos S2 Mini. Let me grab it. And this has the ability to do all sorts of cool stuff. Like if I look at this and I look at the data sheet, I can see that if I want to start messing with other hardware devices, does this do SPI? Yeah, yes. I think yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So a lot of these microcontrollers allow you to do SPI out and start like running custom programs to be able to mess with like other pieces of hardware, or for example get around firmware restrictions or other things with BIOS. So I have not done this personally. A lot of people that study firmware will use this to do like reverse engineering or dumping or glitching or fuzzing or all sorts of other cool stuff. I haven't done it myself, honestly. I know that it's super easy with the hardware that I'm working with, but I haven't used it to do so yet, even though the software language exists both with CircuitPython and then Arduino to do those sorts of things, or like to load up firmware, that sort of thing. So no, I have not done that yet. However, the hardware that I work with is perfectly willing to talk to SPI interfaces and like do funky SPI stuff. So no, I have not done it yet, but it is on my list of things, mostly because of all the compute. Like I just approach every computer as one that I might potentially destroy. So as someone who smokes a fair amount of computers with my research, I've just been nervous to work on like a laptop or something. I just don't have that many. I only have a couple. So I'll get braver. I will work up the courage to destroy a laptop in the name of doing some hardware glitching and hacking. But for now. All right. So we'll comment about Kali Purple. So if you hadn't heard about it, there's a lot of kind of feeling that Kali is mostly useful for red teams and not so much blue teams. So Kali tried to do some rebalancing and made Kali Purple, which has a lot of like blue team tools in it. So that I think is like a step in the right direction of making it useful for all hackers, not just red teamers. And that's one of the things I like about Kali is that they're so ingrained in the community that they're also like rolling out things that address like blue team issues as well as red team. All right, here's a question. Do you ever play CTF or are you just a skid? So I believe the polite term is script kiddie, but I do enjoy CTFs. Although I actually enjoy making CTFs more than I enjoy playing CTFs. So so CTFs or capture the flag challenges are something that allow you to teach somebody or a group of people a lesson. And give them a prize, give them a show, give them something special at the end of the game. And some of the CTS that I've done have involved one called the Chicken Man game, which is one of my favorites. You can look that one up. And then a couple others that are allowing you to hack a deliberately vulnerable web application. So I have the Cat Fanciers Association login page that's actually on one of these nuggets. So each person gets their own to hack. And you learn how to do a web application vulnerability pen test where you figure out the vulnerabilities and then you use a tool like Burp Suite or OWASP Zap to brute force it and log in and get the flag. So I've also participated in a Salesforce CTF that was at the Varonis Black Hat booth run by the security researchers who found all these like really intricate super interesting Salesforce attacks that you could run to steal data from Salesforce. So I got through that one. It was actually not that hard, and it used OWASP Zap, or again, Burp Suite, like I've been kind of familiar with in the past. So yeah, I like to do web application pen testing CTFs, but there's all sorts of other ones out there. Hardware hacking CTFs, Wi-Fi CTFs, there's lots of cool ones. But yeah, so I've done Wi-Fi hacking CTFs, web app pen testing CTFs, and then I feel like I've done other ones as well, but I'm kind of blocking out at the moment. But yeah, CTFs are great. What are my area of expertise? What is my area of expertise? So I am a Wi-Fi hacker. That's probably my first area of expertise. I also have an interest in investigation. So my colleagues who work with me collecting data have described me as a data pig in loving finding data in like a truffle pig, if you will. I love finding data in all sorts of weird places and bringing it together and learning stuff. So my natural inclination to find data wherever it lives and put it together into a picture has led me to be an open source intelligence trainer, where I look through government databases that are open to the public and APIs that let you write little scripts to pull information in, as well as like third-party data sources to help like journalists and investigators be able to use the data that's out there on the internet to do investigations. So that's something I really enjoy as well. And then I also really like microcontrollers because I like being able to take an idea in my head and then in one day of printing and a little bit of coding, be able to make something like that. So microcontrollers, OSINT, Wi-Fi, and those are kind of my primary things. I dabble in all sorts of other stuff. Like I like teaching Python programming and some other like electronics things. Like I like to teach people about soldering with I just did a workshop in Missoula, like teaching people how to kind of like put these little PCBs together that let you change the color based on changing the knobs for red, green, and blue. So hardware hacking, I would say, is also something I really enjoy, and that would be about it. So if you ask me questions about like Windows, virtual machines, or like a lot of these other like more, I guess, like ethereal questions about like specific realms, that's not really my forte. Of course, I also do content creation, so video production, photography, like all that sort of thing. I'm an expert at that. I'm also an expert at fake IDs because I used to be a bouncer at a music venue in Los Angeles for 4 years. And yeah, I've got some other hidden talents as well. Yeah. Have I tried Cali Purple? And if I have, do I plan? So I have not tried Cali Purple yet. I'm going to be getting some new laptops soon. I think I'm going to be getting a new like ThinkPad and a new M1 MacBook. So I'm interested to see what it's like to virtualize, Cali on each one. I don't do as many blue team things, but I am interested in it. So I will be checking it out at some point. I might make a video on it. If you guys want to see it, please let me know in the comments, and I will take a look at featuring the differences with the purple version of Kali versus the other ones you might use. Maybe other people would want to switch to it too. Can you reverse a linked list and see live on stream, please? What? No. I mean, like I could tell Bing to do that and it'll just give me some code and you can watch that happen. But like I'm not Chat GPT. No. How many CVEs do you have under your belt? So let me explain my place in the funnel here. So when there are major pieces of research that are broken, it's usually by people like Matthew Van Hoff or Patrick Wardle that are always constantly in the news talking about the very, very academic research they do with things like C++, exploring the inner workings and intricacies of, for example, like Wi-Fi hacking or like Mac OS hacking. Next on the list is after like the news comes out or after a little bit of this information comes out and some people hear about it, I will read one of these papers and like have them on the show or otherwise talk to them and be like, hey, explain to me how this works. And like, could it also do this, this, and this? And oftentimes I will then, based on their feedback, make a proof of concept that really scares people or that actually like gets a lot of attention because we make a video about it. And at that point, a lot of people hear about it. I, of course, give credit back to the original author. And that's kind of like where I exist within this kind of spectrum where I do a lot of Wi-Fi research myself. And some of it I have done presentations on. However, none of it is like CVE worthy because a lot of this is like Wi-Fi information leaks or ways you can take over Wi-Fi devices by using things that are part of the Wi-Fi standard, but not technically something that they're going to fix. Like this is something that they just like have to accept if they want the standard to work. So there is often people who are racking up CVEs that are making research papers that are not maybe like super accessible to the average person, which I'll go in and find examples of that I'm like, wow, that is really bad. And then make a proof of concept that shows that off to a lot of people. So if that makes sense, I don't really do CVEs. It's not really my job to like do that kind of research. The kinds of research I tend to do is, okay, like a researcher found this obscure thing that happens when you attack Wi-Fi in this way. How effective is it actually? Like how, like, can I do some research into showing off, is this attack going to work against lots of devices or is it just a couple devices and it's maybe not that much of a big deal? So proof of concepts are kind of an interesting place to be within like the cybersecurity spectrum where the core research behind like this vulnerability might have already been done and the manufacturer's like, I'm not going to fix that. As soon as that happens, then my role comes in where I get to see, okay, how bad is this? And then if this is just going to be built into our technology, like what can we do with that? Like, is it actually something that we can do more of? One example I'll give off really quickly is Matthew Van Hoff did some research that shows if you have just a couple, like 5 or 6 really, really common Wi-Fi networks that a lot of people have connected to before, like open Wi-Fi networks from like Starbucks or other places people tend to connect to Wi-Fi, you can unmask and learn a lot about the majority of Wi-Fi devices around you, even though they're supposed to be protecting themselves and like anonymizing themselves. So he's like, wow, like, my limit here is creating maybe like 10 or so of these Wi-Fi networks, but just 10 or so is enough to de-anonymize 80% of nearby Wi-Fi devices. I'm like, 10 devices, like 10 Wi-Fi networks, I can make 100 Wi-Fi networks. So I took a little bit of research and then expanded on it to be able to make so many fake Wi-Fi networks that I could anonymize almost 100% of the devices around me, even when they were trying to hide themselves. So that's the kind of work that I tend to do. It's a little bit more dependent on other people's initial research and some of their initial suggestions, and then taking it a step further and doing presentations on it. So no, I don't have a lot of CVEs. And I won't really reverse a linked list because I use Python. You shouldn't smoke computers. It's not worth the high. I fundamentally disagree. And this is where I get into arguments with a lot of my colleagues in the electronics field. I believe that all components are designed to be smoked in the name of science. And by that, I mean, of course, having the magic smoke come out by plugging them in the wrong way or sending them too much current so that they explode or otherwise stop to work. I have a lot of components that I have tried to do experiments with and ended up exploding. And that's fine. I think that if you're smoking out components, if you're plugging them in the wrong way by accident, if you are actively learning, provided they can be replaced, it's always worth experimenting and accidentally burning up an electronics supply. I will admit that I should probably use more resistors when I'm making my prototypes. However, I will say that I have never met an electronic component I wasn't willing to burn out in the name of science. What should I install that is not Kali or Black Arch? Man, I used to really want to recommend Manjaro, but like that project has kind of fallen apart, so I really can't anymore. Frankly, honestly, I often find myself using Ubuntu just for research, science, like that sort of thing. Like it's easy to like weaponize when necessary, and the support's really good. So I think you'll find like a lot of people that work with Linux all the time end up using Ubuntu just for all the reasons that I've mentioned. So yeah, for like a daily driver, Ubuntu, weirdly enough, is something where it's one of those like curves where it's like beginners and like super experienced people both like heavily use Ubuntu, and then in the middle it's like people using like Kali Linux and Arch and like all this other stuff. So yeah, I would say weirdly enough, most of my friends who work with Linux all the time use Ubuntu, even if they do security stuff. Okay, here is a question that is right up my alley. Do you need a Raspberry Pi to use the D1 Mini to create a fake network for phishing, as you explained in a different video? So it depends. So I've got a D1 Mini based device right here. This is at its core uses an ESP8266, and it can do two things. It can create the appearance of up to 100 fake networks simultaneously. It can also do very, very, very basic Wi-Fi phishing. So it can create like, a fake access point with no internet capability and pop up a little like, captive portal when you join. That's not, like it does technically work. A lot of phones will tend to avoid it because it can't provide like a real data connection, and cellular devices know that, like a cell phone knows that at this point. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. If you wanted to step up the attack and you wanted to provide like a real, like make it like a real serious attack, I would say you could have the ability to use like a microcontroller to create all these fake networks, and then use like an alpha wireless card or something like that to make a phishing network that actually allows the person to connect and does all the phishing stuff you would want, like DNS redirection to send them to like phishing pages, and then like the captive portal pop up. All that would be like perfectly doable via a Raspberry Pi. The reason I like that combo also is most Raspberry Pis are able to use their internal wireless cards for attacks. So let's say that I want to do this on the absolute cheapest, right? Like I want to attack someone over Wi-Fi, and I want to do like a phishing attack. I take the Raspberry Pi, which has a wireless card in it. I plug it into Ethernet, so it has a data connection. I use the internal card of the Raspberry Pi to pop up like a malicious, like a phishing page, and then I plug in a D1 Mini or like a microcontroller, and I use that to put out the bait. So it creates like 100 fake networks. So my target walks into the room, their device recognizes maybe one or two of those like 100 fake networks, and then my Linux, my Raspberry Pi based wireless network adapter becomes whatever network, the device is trying to connect to, like Google Starbucks. Boom, their device connects to Google Starbucks. I'm able to pop up a captive portal. I can do DNS spoofing, and I can also let them connect to the internet and wait until they go to a sensitive website or request like via DNS, like a sensitive website, and boom, pop up a phishing page. So different ways you could go. You could do a really low budget, and I would say not very impressive attack just with the microcontroller. But you're going to run into problems because a lot of phones won't connect to a network that doesn't actually have internet. If you want to blend it, then I would say the lowest possible bar would be, like a D1 Mini and a Raspberry Pi. But as somebody pointed out in the chat right after, you could just use like an Alpha wireless network adapter to do some of these attacks. It's just like it really helps to have two of them. And I've found, and I actually found this out by reading Matthew Van Hoff's paper, that like Linux kind of makes it hard to create like a ton of fake networks, whereas microcontrollers don't care. They'll just do it. So for these sort of beacon swarming attacks that I'm talking about, that's some of the research that I did, kind of expanding on Matthew's research. He was only able to create a limited amount of networks in order to test this theory, where I was able to go absolutely ham and just create like tons and tons and tons of fake networks using microcontrollers and their ability to just lie because they don't care. They'll transmit whatever. So there's definitely a purpose for each one of these tools in the Wi-Fi hacking realm. So it's totally something that I enjoy talking about a lot, as you can probably tell. Have you ever done web exploitation? I held off on this until basically I stopped doing the nullbyte channel. Like by the time I moved on to like Hack5 and stuff, I was curious about it, but I just assumed you really needed to know a lot in order to get started. And I was totally and completely wrong. I learned a couple really easy just getting started kind of like tutorial guides on Portswigger's like Portswigger Academy, which has a bunch of deliberately vulnerable web applications, which I'll pull up. And that's actually how I learned. So I have, as a researcher, I have a lot of opinions about which tools to use and whatever, and I tend to go with the ones that are free. Like those are the ones that I like, and I think that in general, like if I can get away with steering you guys towards like free tools, then that's what I want to do. So I will make exceptions though if I'm able to show off really, really great tools and they make it easy for me, because then I have the confidence that other people asking will probably be able to get the same thing. Not so with Portswigger. I found this to be very, very annoying. They would not give me the free trial so that I can make videos for everyone using Burp Suite, which is the most popular. And I found that to be very annoying. So instead, I learned how to use OWASP Zap, which I absolutely love, by the way. I think it's wonderful. Let me exit out of this. And this is what I recommend. Download OWASP Zap. Maybe watch one of my videos on how to use it. And then try out some of these labs. So these are, I like the authentication ones. These are real vulnerable web applications that you can take a crack at attacking. You can see I have solved many of these. These are ways that you can figure out how to break authentication and log into things like broken IoT devices or like other just like poorly set up login schemes. These are super, super common problems that it teaches you to identify and exploit, and you can do it all legally. So I enjoy how simple it is to just get started with this sort of thing. I ended up making some of my own CTFs because sometimes this website goes down and it makes it so that it's a little bit more difficult to be able to complete it when it's down. But I can click on here. It will open up a deliberately vulnerable web application that I can start using whatever tool I want to attack. And I found that, you can just use the free and open source tool and then use their free like lab to kind of like test out the open source version of web application pen testing tools. So I love web exploitation, web pen testing. Like I think it's like honestly something I should have gotten into earlier because I thought that it was going to be so much harder. I will admit that I missed whatever day in class they taught HTTP status codes. Like it's just something that it's assumed that everyone knows, and that flabbergasted me because like nobody told me about that. But yeah, I think that if I'd gotten started with web application pen testing sooner, I probably would participate in more CTFs, and I would be able to do a lot of these things that I thought were like a lot harder than they really are. So check this out. You can hack this blog. No one cares. The login, everything is all staged so that it's vulnerable, and you can use these free tools to figure out how to break into it. And again, there's also guides that show you how to like solve these challenges. I've made several myself, so I highly recommend them. Do I ever play CF time CTFs? What's your team's rank? No, the only thing that I'm ranked on is Wiggle, and I'm in the top 200 of Wiggle.net. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to brag about that. But I have not played the CTF, so I don't have a rank. Okay, so here's another comment. I'm more of a data / OSINT person. I've created my own pipeline tools. Actually, as a learning experience, making my own data database up from the ground up, just using. Yeah, like okay. So this is a similar experience to what I had. As I learned Python, I combined it with my interest as an investigator to write tools for other people. So let's say that I found a really interesting data set in LA Open Data. So I used to live in LA, and I still sometimes do. And I love being able to pull from these open data sets. And as an investigator, being able to use a little bit of basic Python to write my own queries. So if I wanted to learn business data, I could do searches for all the different data sets, like a listing of active businesses, and be able to write tools that query this on behalf of investigators. I can even write combination tools that take an initial hit and then use other city data sets to enrich the data. So let's say that I find an active business, I can search to see if they have a liquor license. I can search to see like what the recent food grades are. I can bring in all this extra data as an investigator that lets me flex a little bit as a programmer and also contribute something back to the community. So I think a lot of people have had like similar experiences because it's a great thing to be able to share whatever you're interested in as a tool that other people can use to learn. Let's see. How would I don't know. I don't know about SQL vulnerabilities. That's a great question, but I cannot answer that one. There's so many now. Have you ever actually found a bug bounty? I have found critical vulnerabilities in businesses and then been rewarded with a pat on the back. I feel like that is a pretty typical bug bounty scenario. I have submitted bug bounties through like bug bounty providers where basically like I'm just writing an anonymous note to tell a business that something is really wrong. And like, I don't even want them to contact me. I don't care. I just want them to fix it. So that's mostly done like if I think that the business might like freak out and not appreciate the information, then I'll typically like contact like a bug bounty program and be like, hey, like I'd like to submit like an anonymous report, and then they're the ones that do the outreach and like try to explain the problem. So yeah, like I've done some like direct bug bounty stuff, and then I've done, but I don't do bug bounty for pay. That's not my field, and I'm not really looking to make money doing it. I tend to do it more either for academic purposes or for just warning a business about something I've discovered. You don't have to be a genius to have a CV. No, you just got to be a nerd. No, it honestly of everything in cybersecurity, there's a relatively small niche of us, like group of us that deal with CVE worthy research. Like typically, these are going to be people that are researching like individual libraries or like looking for problems with like again like Wi-Fi as a standard, the way that it's implemented. Like these are researchers who are not doing pen tests for the most part. Like they are doing academic research, or they're doing like reverse engineering or other things where like it's kind of unfair if you're like a reverse engineer and like other people are spending like all their time and energy on these like heavy computer science exploits, and you're just like reverse engineering them and like getting like CVEs for it. So just realize like everybody in cybersecurity like comes from a different background. The expectation that everybody should like have a CVE. If you're like a blue team person, like when would you ever like, unless you're reverse engineering binaries or something, if you're like, an incident responder, or if you are, in my field where I'm like making content and doing like kind of like proof of concept research, it's just not in our field. It's like not, it's like, yeah. So everybody in cybersecurity has like different jobs. And I would say that the people who do reverse engineering and the people that are doing academic research are tending to be the ones that like are doing CVEs, because they have the time and energy to be like looking into ways to like crash like a specific library that like everybody uses, but like nobody pays attention to. Like that's really kind of research that like yields that sort of thing. Hey man, can you explain to me how you'd implement a shellcode that performs process injection to running target proc on a Windows system? I'm not gonna do that. But I will move on to this because I do want to talk about it. This is one of the shirts that Null Space Labs, one of my favorite hacker spaces and one that I frequently teach classes at, has started making. It's so cool. It's like kind of like the in and out trees, and then like a bunch of like code. Yes, very great. By the way, I don't even like know shell code. I know Python. So if you got a Python question for me, happy to answer it. But if you've got like a Windows specific C shellcode malware kind of thing where you want me to write like a reverse engineering tool for like something, I can't do it. All right. Which Raspberry Pi would you recommend to run Kali Linux? This is a question that I go back and forth on because it depends on what you want to do. I recently ran an entire workshop using the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, and I forgot how slow that thing is. I guess my expectations were just lower in the past. The Raspberry Pi 4 works very well for doing most things. The only problem is that it doesn't support wireless monitor mode, and you can't do like injection with it. So the big difference is Raspberry Pi 4 uses a different Wi-Fi chipset that isn't possible to do some of the cool Wi-Fi hacking stuff that I want to do. So you're going to be stuck grabbing an additional wireless network adapter if you want to do that. But you can always grab something small. Like Panda Wireless has a bunch of these little like USB style ones that give you the ability to do 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz hacking. And they cost like $30 or so. So, you know, it does, to me anyway, it does suck to have to buy an extra piece of hardware when the 3B Pluses can do both. So if you've got time to kill, and if you're doing low, I don't know, like low processor intensive stuff, then you can absolutely get away with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. But if you're doing basically anything else, then I would say the Raspberry Pi 4 is something you should consider. Just for me, the 3B Plus ended up being great because we were teaching kids in our cyber camp, and they were trying to play cookie clicker, like, and it was just throttling it ridiculously. Like they were having such a hard time. So anytime they got off task and they weren't doing like a command line Linux thing, it would start to like heat up and shut down. So yeah, we had a lot of computers get too hot, and that was actually the joke. Was I would give them a thermal like reader, like image sensor, and they would walk around and like measure how hot they got their computer before it shut down. So that being said, I can't say that I necessarily recommend the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus anymore. I used to, but now I would say if you have the budget to get the extra wireless network adapter, it's probably worth it to be able to run applications. But if you want, you know, kids in your workshop to basically punish themselves by opening up any sort of Flash game, then there you go, that'll work. I'm pretty sure most people in this chat have a CVE. I'm pretty sure most people in this chat have a CVE like on their computer unpatched. But as far as everybody in the chat having earned or released a CVE, like no, like most CVEs are also by like the same group of people. Let's see. This is a great question. Can you explain the evil twin attack and the techniques used to set them up and the countermeasures that can be implemented to defend against them? Yes, so I'll address them in brief. We're a little over our time today, but all the good questions always come at the end. So I'm going to try to get through a good amount of them. So evil twin attacks are basically when I listen for Wi-Fi networks that devices nearby are calling out for, and then I create a fake version of that. A variation of this is if you're already connected to a Wi-Fi network, then I can kill off your connection to that network. Let's say we're at a coffee shop. I kill your connection to Google Starbucks. You instead connect to another identically named network, my Google Starbucks. Your device connects automatically. It doesn't tell you. And now I'm in the middle of your connection. So what can you do about this? Well, for one, you can use networks that have a password. If you do that, then you reduce the likelihood of just having like a network swapped over. Now, if the password is known to everyone, like it's again like a coffee shop and they share the password with everyone, it's a little bit more difficult. But I would recommend using a VPN. Primarily because it encrypts the traffic and makes it very difficult for me to do pop-ups or intercept your traffic or allow anything to like enter that stream of encrypted traffic. I just become a kind of a pipeline for that. So using a VPN is really my advice for that. The reason I use a VPN is not because I'm doing stuff I'm afraid from my ISP seeing, although, I don't think they need to see it anyway. The reason I use a VPN for the most part is because if I'm in public, I want anybody who's operating a rogue network to see nothing, basically. All right. Sorry, I would love to answer all these, but if I don't know what I don't know anything about PHP, so I'm going to skip past that one. Let's see if there's any other questions I can answer. I don't know anything about how long it takes the US Bureau to track an IP. What about smoking lithium polymer ion battery? So I've gotten so I make some of these like open source like hacking tools, and I have never included batteries in them. We've made some add-ons for batteries, and for DEF CON we added we made a badge that had like a battery, but I don't mess with them because I'm afraid of them, because I've seen them explode, and I'm even afraid of like putting in a capacitor backwards, like let alone like a LiPo battery exploding. So I am very, very reserved to use like a LiPo battery in most of my projects, because of all the things I have the courage to smoke, a LiPo battery, like plugging that in backwards or like puncturing it or something, I don't want to do it. It's not worth it. Have I ever found an exploit in the wild? I found tons of okay, so when we say finding an exploit in the wild, is like, do you mean like, have I found a vulnerable thing that's either being exploited or that I could exploit? Because all the time, absolutely all the time. And I've also seen like the result of honeypots where like I'll create something and someone attempts to exploit it. So I've seen that as well. Yes. So the answer is going to be yes. Do I prefer heap or stack exploits? As I explained, I am a Wi-Fi expert, I am a OSINT expert, and I am a hardware expert.
Mission objective: retrieve stolen candy.
So not necessarily my field of expertise. I started out with computer science and I transitioned into networking and electronics, as you can see. So heap versus stack, I understand that, but I don't have a preference because it's not where I work. All right. Any advice for sorting / carving Google takeouts, Facebook data, backup data? Yes, absolutely. Try out having ChatGPT or Bing AI write Google Colab like Python to visualize this data. If you feed it a small part of the data set and tell it you want to break it down by this, create a graph based on that, it's actually really great at it. And you can use tools like Google Colab to visualize data, take in data sets, and do real data science. And the AI can help you write the code to do it. Now, don't just feed the data set directly to the AI. It doesn't work. I tried. It lies to you. But if you ask the AI to help you analyze the data set in a tool like Google Colab, then you can take these big data sets and actually start to do some digging into them and learn more about them. You just need to provide a sample of the data so it knows what kind of structure it's working with. How do regex work? Pure black magic. They make sense up to a certain point, and then you have to be like just a certain kind of person to write them. Okay, I am getting to the point where I'm almost done. Hello, I am a woman in tech. Why don't you have women on your channel? So one of our most frequent guests is Angelina, who teaches about aerospace cybersecurity. You can find her on almost all of our recent Q&A streams. This is actually the first Q&A stream she hasn't been on in like 2 or 3 weeks. So just wait would be my answer. Angelina is our guest, I would say more frequently than anybody else on the show. So just wait. All right. I think that we are just about done for today. Oh, wait, somebody doesn't like OWASP Zap. Please stop telling people to use OWASP Zap. That sucks. No, I won't. So I have used OWASP Zap to do all sorts of web exploitation stuff, and it works amazing. The documentation is perhaps a little bit harder to find, but do you know how expensive Burp Suite is? Like, not everybody has that cash. Like, I haven't found any sort of issue with it. And I kind of feel like it's that argument where people are like, oh, you're using a Linux computer or like a Mac computer or a Windows computer. Everybody picks their favorite that they don't like. Like, I'm not going to listen to you. It's like everybody uses different tools to accomplish the same task. Like if you can use OWASP Zap versus Burp Suite to do the exact same thing, it just works, you know? And I'm often going to use the open source and free version anyway, because that's what I prefer. If you like Burp Suite, good for you. I don't like paying, especially if they're kind of unfriendly to like researchers who are like trying to like make videos about it or teach other people to use it. If they won't let us like try it and like show that it works, then you know, like I'm gonna keep representing OWASP Zap. I find it to be wonderful. I had no idea you were an OWASP Zap user. Unsubscribed. Yes. Okay, cool. So if anybody has issues with open source tools, especially free ones, then absolutely, absolutely, there are some channels that I think that you would enjoy more. All right. So I think that that's just about the majority of it. Thank you to everybody who was asking questions in the chat today. And I would say the number one thing that I learned from doing Nullbyte is that if you, for one, expect everybody to know everything in a field, you're going to be unrealistic, especially cybersecurity, where there's so much technology and there's so many different angles. And for two, everybody is a beginner. So if you think that my, oh my gosh, like 6 or 7 years in ethical hacking have taught me like how to do like heap overflows just because I've been around for a while, no. Like I design like niche like Wi-Fi attacks. Like I create Python tools to make it easier to search through like government data for researchers. And like I enjoy making right hardware proof of concepts just because I feel like it, you know. In that time, I'm pretty satisfied with what I've learned. So if anybody tries to make you feel like you don't know enough or like your time learning in cybersecurity isn't something that makes you a part of the community, don't listen to them. The ability to be a beginner and the ability to learn something for the first time, turn around and share it with other people is the only reason I made the Nullbyte channel. So this is in general a great community to get started with. But if anybody picks on your operating system, what web application pen testing tool you use, or what your preferences are for how you learn this stuff, don't listen to them. It's hard enough to learn all this technology as it is without people having to stake their ego on whether or not you know a particular fact. So that's my 2 cents of the week. All right, so that's all the time I have. I will continue to update you on this Halloween project I'm working on, which is a combination of 3D printing, AI-generated code, and a little bit of hardware and soldering. If you have any ideas for how to make this scarier, I will be looking at adding motors, servos, really whatever it takes to make this horrifying. And yeah, we've got plenty of time before Halloween, so we'll see how this goes. As always, a big shout out to our sponsor, Varonis, for letting us go live every week and take your questions. If you didn't get a chance to get your question answered, you can always go onto our YouTube channel and post your question there, or you can go onto our Discord server, which is at Nugget, that's NUGGET.LOL. All right, that's all we have this week. I will see everybody next week. Well, sorry, never mind, on Friday when we go over the hacker news of the week. All right. See you then, everyone. Goodbye.